Okay, I am Dean Polking, P-O-L-K-I-N-G. I was born in Carroll County, Iowa, 1925. I lived at Breda, Iowa until I was a junior in high school, and I went to Carroll after that, Carroll, Iowa, and graduated Carroll High School in 1942. I went to the service in 1943. I volunteered to enter the service on the day I was 18. I was in the service for 3 years in the Air Corps. At that time, the Air Corps was part of the Army. It was the Army Air Corps, which is now the Air Force. After the war, I went to the University of Iowa and transferred to Creighton University at Omaha, Nebraska, and graduated there in 1949. I started working for the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, in 1949, and I worked for them for 31 years. And during the entire time, I was stationed at Fort Dodge, Iowa. After that, I worked 25 years for the Webster County Sheriff's Department and served legal papers in this county. That's about it as far as my lifetime. As far as connection with Templeton and Templeton Rye, I was a young person at the time that the Templeton Rye and so forth was in its heyday. But there were stories, and I was privileged to hear some of the stories firsthand. At the time I was young. Later on, I officed with a person who was in the ATF, the Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms Division of the Treasury Department. And he told me many stories of Templeton, Templeton Rye, and Carroll County back in the Prohibition days, as he called it. As far as some of the stories I know, I can remember I probably was in the second or third grade, and I was going to school at the Catholic school in Breda. One day I noticed 3 or 4 people with suits on and walking around into the basement of the Breda school. Next to the Breda school was a very large house which had been purchased recently by a man from Templeton, Iowa. And of course, kids are not dumb. And everybody said he was a bootlegger. And so I went in the basement one day and asked these 3 people, as to what they were doing in the basement. They were looking out the window all the time in the basements. And they said to ask the janitor. So I asked the janitor, and he said, he turned to me, he said, "Isn't any of your business?" About 3 days later, they had a huge raid on this individual. And I believe at that time he was sent to jail, although I'm not 100% sure. But I know at some time in his life he was sent to jail after that. He was not making any whiskey, he was transporting whiskey. It was a huge thing back in Carroll County at that time. Especially in the Templeton, Arcadia, Helber areas, Breda area to a certain extent. I'd say the farmers in the Templeton area probably raised or probably produced more than the Breda area. But there were a lot of people in the Breda area transported the what should I say, the booze or the whiskey.